Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. Jeff Toister founded Toister Performance Solutions in 2005 to help companies improve employee performance. The company focuses exclusively on helping companies develop customer-focused cultures. Services include customer service vision writing, keynote speaking, and employee training. Jeff has also presented several LinkedIn learning courses on customer service. Jeff's based in San Diego, California. I called Jeff to ask for his thoughts on agents, contact centers, customer experience industry, and how brands can really improve customer relationships. Okay, Jeff, thanks for being on the podcast. Now, I know that from looking at your company website, you're a trainer and consultant. You've got extensive CX industry expertise. When you get called into a client and, whether it's their contact center or the wider customer experience strategy, and they ask you, we've got a problem, we're not performing. Do you have a sort of top 5 checklist of common issues that you always check for?
I really have a top 1 checklist, and I can tell you this is the one reason that 99% of the time we're not creating the customer experience that we want. So the question I ask is, okay, what does a great customer experience look like? And if you can't give a clear, simple, and succinct answer to that question, how do you expect your employees to do the same? How do you expect different departments to align if there isn't a clear definition of what a great experience looks like? And you can't come up with something generic. If a great experience at the Ritz-Carlton is completely different than a great experience from Disney or Amazon. They're all great experiences, but they're different. And so that is almost always the reason why organizations struggle. They haven't defined what a great experience looks like, so they aren't able to compare what they're doing towards that goal. And magical things happen once you do that. When you can say, this is what great looks like, this is where we are today, and this is the reason why we're not where we want to be, well, that's your list of things to work on. So for me, it's almost always that top 1. What does great experience look like?
So that really comes from the top. I mean, it's a bit like the companies you hear that say, we want to be an innovative company, but the boss will fire anybody who makes a mistake.
It does come from the top. And it's funny you talk about innovation. I recently stumbled across an older study, but still I think a valid one, that said that when companies write their values, for example, they basically use the same words. And in the States where I'm based, I think something like 80 to 90% of companies use the word integrity in their corporate values. So it sounds good, but if everybody has the same empty word or words that they're using, it doesn't have any real meaning. And, if the top says, hey, we're going to be customer focused, that doesn't provide clarity. If the CEO or the C-suite says, this is specifically what we're trying to accomplish, then it provides a little bit more clarity for employees. So as an example, and I apologize, I know you have a global audience, and I'm often focused in the States because that's where a lot of my examples come from. But one of my favorite retailers in the U.S. is called REI. They sell outdoor gear for hiking, camping, etc. And they define a great experience as helping their members. It's a co-op, so customers are really members, helping their members enjoy the outdoors. We know we're doing our job if we're helping our members enjoy the outdoors. And this definitely comes from the top. So as an example, a few years ago, on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving in the U.S., which is the busiest retail day of the year in the United States, REI closes the entire company. All of their stores, you can't even place an order on their website. And why? Because they believe so strongly you should be enjoying the outdoors, and that's a great day to go do it. They're going to shut down, refuse all of our sales, and say, enjoy the outdoors. That's what our employees are doing today. Now, if that isn't reflecting a core belief in the great customer experience that you're trying to provide, I don't know what is, but that has to come from the CEO.
Yeah, that's a fantastic example. And I mean, picking up on that, I'm interested in how the like the words that we hear about the role of the agents in the contact center sort of matches with the modern reality. I mean, even within the past 5 years, we've seen so many more customer channels introduced. In fact, they've just been added to constantly. But there's all these other tools that are supporting the agents, like the chatbots, better self-service, artificial intelligence. I mean, what are the skills that we really expect a modern customer service agent to have?
Well, I think there's a few things there, Mark, and we should probably unpack it a little bit. First of all, there's this big issue of channel chasing. And what I mean by that is companies are adding all sorts of channels to the mix when they haven't even mastered the ones they're already working on. And I think that's a real detriment, right? Why, there's only so many resources to go around. Why open up new channels when your existing channels are poorly managed? And there's plenty of case studies of customer-focused organizations that don't offer service via every channel imaginable. They pick a few, they're really good at those, and if customers don't have their favorite channel, that's okay, they'll adapt because fundamentally customers want a better experience over their channel preference. So I think that's the first thing I think that organizations should do a better job of realizing. You have to really nail those channels. The second thing is, chasing these shiny tools like chatbots and AI, et cetera. It's kind of the same thing, right? We're rolling out all this technology without understanding how it impacts our customer. And that really is sometimes to the detriment. So, today when I'm on a website and I get an invitation to chat, I probably expect a human, yet now I'm chatting with a bot, which is just compounding my frustration because I really wanted a human. I feel that my issue is complex enough or urgent enough. A person is who I want in this moment, and the company's forcing me to deal with a kind of incompetent robot and figure out how to get past that robot to get to the human I want to talk to. And so we go to your question, what skills does the modern agent need? Things have changed. Many, many years ago when I was working in a contact center, we called it a call center. Why? Because we got calls. That was the channel we handled. And there was a specific set of skills that you needed. And the other thing that was really interesting back then is most of the interactions were simple. They were really, really easy, and occasionally you got a really challenging one. Well, today we have multiple channels, and each channel has a different set of skills. So if I'm really good on the phone, that doesn't mean I'm going to be really good on email or really good on social media or really good on chat. I might be, but they're very different skill sets for all of those channels, whether it's writing skills, verbal skills, thinking skills, the way we empathize, the way we find the correct answer quickly and provide it to the customer. So the channel says that we need a different set of skills. But the other problem that our agents have is because customers generally do prefer self-service, when they go to a live human, it's typically because one of three things has happened. One, they tried self-service and it didn't work, so they're kind of upset. Two, they feel that their issue is so urgent that messing around with trying to find the answer on self-service is not a good use of their time. They want service now. And three, they feel that their issue is so complex that self-service is not going to help them out, or a bot is not going to solve it for them. So urgent, frustrated, and confused customers are what the modern agent has to deal with more and more today. The simple contacts are by and large gone. And so the modern agent really has to have the ability to quickly empathize and diagnose complex issues and make that customer feel a lot better at the end of the interaction. And it's just getting tougher and tougher to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, really, you're arguing about these great interactions can build great relationships between the brand and customer. But I know that, traditionally we've always measured success by how quickly we get the customer off the line, and I know it sounds dated, but I still see customer service teams all over the world still using these metrics. I mean, we know that this is dated and that we really want to measure better interactions with the customer, but who have you seen that's getting this right and managing to measure things in a more accurate way?
So I think we have to put some nuance when we're talking about productivity, and it's a bit of a counterintuitive insight. I think contact centers specifically still should measure productivities. For example, call handle time. What they should not do is put that metric in front of agents. And I'll see if I can kind of pull out the difference here. So if I'm a contact center manager and I have, let's say, 10 agents or 100 agents, and I notice that 2 agents are whizzing through their calls, I want to know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because if all of their customers are immensely unhappy, then they're probably skipping something very important. On the other hand, if their customers are delighted, maybe they discovered some sort of technique that I can share with everybody else. On the other hand, maybe I have a couple of agents that take forever to get through their calls. And again, why is that? Is it because they chat all day? Is it because they take the time and are more thorough? I want to know what the outliers are doing. So from a management perspective, it's still good to look at that metric, but I don't want to put it in front of my agents. And you're right, a lot of contact centers are moving away from that as a metric, but they're still sharing the data with their agents. So agents have access to real-time dashboards, or they can look at a big screen in their contact center that tells them urgently how many calls are waiting and for how long. And so it has the same effect of getting agents to go too fast through their calls or their emails or their chats. And when we go too fast, bad things happen. We don't do as good a job, so quality suffers, and we often miss the opportunity to prevent the next contact. And so we end the contact, we quickly get to the next person, and that last customer, 30 minutes, a day, 2 days later realizes, hey, I still have this problem. Now I have to call back or I have to email back. Agents have also admitted to me that when they get through a big queue and they've really been working fast and now things have settled down, the queue is a lot more manageable, they secretly start working slower because they feel as though they have more time. And what happens then? Well, then the queue builds back up. So I would take that speed and productivity data out of the agent's face, make it a management issue. And when contact centers have refocused agents on saying, hey, I want you to be efficient, but I want you to help the customer achieve their goal so that they're happy and they don't need to contact us again for the same issue. A very counterintuitive thing has happened. The part you can imagine is service quality goes up, so customers are happier. The second thing is fewer customers have to call back or email back or initiate a new chat. In other words, we've prevented the next problem from occurring. That saves us a ton of contacts in the future. The third thing, and this is the really counterintuitive part, when contact centers have focused their agents on doing just that, productivity has either stayed the same or improved on a per contact basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, do you see the contact center becoming a more accepted part of broader CX strategy? I mean, I've seen some companies blend marketing and sales and customer service to create a kind of customer experience hub. Is that approach becoming common?
I think a confused approach is what I'm seeing more often than not, where we're rebranding the contact center, the customer experience center, and doing absolutely nothing different. Some organizations that I'm looking at are understanding that customer experience, of course, is much broader than that. And whatever they're doing organizationally, the more customer-focused organizations are making organizational design choices that are really well thought out and intentional. And the intention is to make sure that whatever department you're in, whether it's the contact center, marketing, product development, operations, manufacturing, that they're all focused on the same picture. And that same picture is what we talked about at the top of our conversation, which is what does a great experience look like? And then how do I personally, or how does my team contribute to that?
And I've seen you writing before about hidden obstacles. I mean, there's hidden obstacles that prevent you from creating a great experience. And often we just don't realize it, that the processes in the business or the contact center, they're not creating the right environment in which customers can be easily helped. Could you just explain a bit more about, this idea of the hidden obstacles and how do we get rid of them?
Sure. The hidden obstacles are usually on an individual level. These really focus on things that as human beings tend to get in our way. So as an example, I imagine that a lot of your listeners right now are doing something in addition to listening to our conversation. They're writing an email, or they're working on a presentation, or they're doing some sort of project work. Perhaps they're driving. Whatever it is, that is one of the biggest obstacles that we face, which is multitasking. We're trying to do more than one task at a time. And the challenge is twofold. One, we're not very good at it. In fact, we're terrible at it. When we multitask, we feel the stress of being very, very busy, but we tend to make more mistakes, and it takes us longer to get things done. And those two things are pretty deadly when you in any kind of work environment. The other challenge that we face, though, is our work environment is littered with prompts for multitasking. So many of us have gone from one monitor on our desk to 2 computer monitors, sometimes 3. I, no kidding, saw 8 the other day. I could not believe it. I don't know how you do it, but somebody had 8 monitors on their desk. So when I have multiple programs open, I'm trying to do multiple things at once. I have prompts that pop up on my screen. Every single app on my phone wants to push notifications to me and constantly interrupt whatever I'm doing to get me to pay attention to something else. When all of those things are happening, I never truly get into what's called a flow state, where I'm effortlessly concentrating on the task at hand and giving my full self to doing a good job of that one thing. And so if we're talking about customer service, for example, it's hard to serve that one customer and listen to their needs and fully help them if I'm being distracted by a dozen other things. If I'm trying to create the next great marketing campaign, it's really hard to do that if I'm bouncing from meeting to meeting to meeting and I never really have a moment to catch my breath and focus. If I'm in operations and I'm trying to make sure things are running efficiently, if I'm running around all day putting out figurative fires, I never really have the opportunity to figure out, how do we make this better? And so I would say there's many obstacles, but that multitasking is probably one of the most common and pervasive.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've turned off all the notifications on my phone. I know that I can't sit and write anything if the phone keeps pinging all the time.
That's true. In fact, there's a real simple method, and I encourage your listeners to try this out. It's been branded as the Pomodoro method. So I think there's a website called the Pomodoro method. No affiliation. I probably got the website sort of wrong, but Google will fix that if you Pomodoro, like the tomato. But the idea is that you set a timer. I think they prescribe a specific time. I've experimented, and it doesn't really matter. I usually go 13 minutes. It's kind of an odd but fun number for me, to anywhere to 20 minutes. And what you do is you set a timer on your phone, and during that amount of time, let's say it's 20 minutes, you give yourself permission to block out every other task and just focus on one thing. And it gives your mind a little bit of it gives yourself a little bit of peace of mind, because during that time you kind of push aside all those other distractions, because you know, hey, 20 minutes from now I can go back to multitasking. And an amazing thing typically happens in that time. You start getting deeper and deeper into what you're doing. And by the time the timer goes off, you've accomplished a lot, but you're really hyper-focused. And often I'm all annoyed by the timer, saying, no, I'm really into this task right now. Give me another 20 minutes. I'm nailing this. So that Pomodoro method is a highly effective and very simple experiment that anyone can try.
Okay, excellent. I mean, just finally then, we've talked about some of the changes within the contact center, but if you're looking at the wider CX industry, I mean, what are your clients talking to you about at present? What are some of the big changes or evolutions that you see taking place this year?
I think the worry is the next shiny thing. And again, I think this will be perhaps a little counterintuitive, but the organizations that I see that are most customer focused, their executives have slowed things down a bit. And they said, we don't have to do 100 things poorly. Let's do one thing or two things really, really well. And that starts with defining what's called a customer experience vision. That's what we started talking about today. It's a shared definition of an outstanding experience that gets everybody on the same page. And if you can create that and socialize that so employees understand what it means and how they contribute to it, and then align your strategy and all of your operations around that one North Star, That's a lot of work right there, but it's a very simple concept. And when I have researched customer-focused organizations, that's what all of them are doing. And so I think that's, ignore all of the latest trends, ignore all of the noise. You don't need the shiny new technology in most cases. Just focus on what are you trying to do for your customer and how do you get there?
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. Please take a moment to review the podcast because this helps other listeners to find it. And if you have any suggestions, then get in touch with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm at Mark Hillary with 2 L's, or just search Google for Mark Hillary.